Welcome to my fraction lesson. The learning intention of today's lesson is to develop conceptual understanding of what exactly a fraction is. As a success criteria, will you be understanding that fractions are part of a whole, but what we'll be aiming for is some deep understanding where you're connecting all written symbols with what they actually mean. There's some essential vocabulary that you'll need. For today, it's very important that you understand that fraction. Whenever we're talking about fractions, we're talking about equal parts. Quite often when Coco and Reese are sharing a piece of food, they always make the joke that they want the biggest part. And of course that's mathematically incorrect, and they laugh that their mum, the teacher, is always making a joke of that. The word numerator. The numerator is the number on the top of a fraction, and that tells us how many parts of fraction we're talking about. And the denominator, the number at the bottom, is telling us how many parts the whole is divided into. We'll be doing lots and lots of work on this. Okay, so for today, what I want you to do is pause this video, and I want you to go and find yourself. They don't have to be beautiful and coloured like mine, just pieces of paper of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces of paper that are exactly the same size. So pause this video, go and grab them, and then you'll need your strips of paper and you'll also need a texter. Okay, so hopefully you've come back now and we've got our strips of paper ready to go. For one of the pieces of paper, it's essential that all the pieces of paper are exactly the same size as mine are. We have one whole. You can see that we have one piece of paper, which is one whole. The green piece of paper is also one whole, but I'm going to dissect the piece of paper into two equal parts. So we have one whole divided into two equal parts. I'm just going to trace over the fold so you can see each of those parts. You can see here I've got the denominator there is 2. The numerator is 1. We have 1/2. We now have another part which makes 2 halves. I'm hoping that you can see the essential understanding that 2 halves is equal to 1 whole. Next piece of paper, the same size as the whole. I'm going to fold it in half. I'm now going to fold it in half again. I'll trace over the folds. We have one whole dissected into 4 equal parts. The denominator is 4. The denominator tells us how many parts we have. The numerator tells us how many parts we're talking about. If we're just talking about this 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4. I'm hoping again you're developing that essential understanding that 4/4 is exactly the same as 1 whole. You might also be making some connections between the connection between 2/4 and 1/2. Next piece of paper, I'm going to fold in half, and then I'm going to fold it in half again, and then I'm going to fold it in half again. I open up, I have one hole that has been dissected or split or divided into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pieces. Because my one hole is divided into 8 pieces, the denominator is going to be 8. So just like a number line, we have 1/8. The numerator is talking about how many pieces we're talking about. We have one whole divided into 8 pieces. The numerator is talking about this one piece. Now we're talking about 2 pieces, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8, 6/8, 7/8, and 8/8. Again, I'm hoping that you're making the connection that 8/8 is equal to one whole. Perhaps you're making other connections with 1/2, 2/4, and 4/8. In half, in half, in half, and in half. I now have the same size hole that I began with, but I have 16 pieces. And because I have 16 pieces, the denominator, the number on the bottom, which tells the mathematician how many parts the whole is divided into, is 16. The numerator, the number on the top, informs the mathematician about how many parts we're talking about. One 16th, 2 16ths, 3 16ths, 4 16ths, 5 16ths, 6 16ths, 7 16ths, 8 16ths, 9 16ths, 10 16ths, 11 16ths, 12 16ths, 13 16ths, 14 16ths, 15 16ths, and 16 16ths. And you guessed it, I'm still hoping that you're making the deep connections, because that's what you're always looking at, getting to that deep and transfer level of knowledge. that 16 sixteenths is exactly the same as 1 whole. You might be also making connections with 1/2, 2/4, 4/8, and 8/16. You might also be making connections with the numerator and the denominator. Is there a connection that can continue through? I could have kept going, but I've run out of piece of paper on my little board here. You are to do this task. I want you to take a photo and share it. I'm also going to trial using Screencastify Submit, where you show your fraction family. We call this a fraction family, the half fraction family. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing your learning.